it is indeed a great privilege for me to have been invited along to speak to you today, and I can't say how much I am privileged to have the opportunity to speak to you here in Bournemouth. I'm not in the communication business myself, but I recognise the power and importance of the work that's been done by you across the whole of the country. I had an uncle many years ago who was a postie for 50 years on the island of Tiree, which is in the Inner Hebrides in Scotland. And as a wee girl, I used to go round with him in the post van. I'm probably sure under health and safety I wouldn't be allowed to do that anymore. And what struck me as I've watched my Uncle Neil working was he was as much a community worker as he was a postie. He was speaking to people, he was delivering chickens or whatever needed to be done, and I think occasionally the odd dram as well, if I remember properly. But that and the importance of communication for fragile communities, not just delivering letters, but people being able to speak to each other. It is a completely different world now, but still the importance of communication is at the centre of what you do, and it's absolutely central to the opportunities we will have to create a strong economy. And I am delighted to be, and I'm very privileged to have received support from the CWU in standing for leader, and I can assure you that CWU colleagues in Scotland make sure that we in the Labour Party are very clear about their priorities, and we have a very strong and productive partnership together. And I look forward to working with CWU as we take on the significant challenges we face in the political world and in the trade union movement. And of course, we do not have our challenges to seek. David Cameron famously told the country that we were all in this together, and he claimed he would share out the pain evenly as he set about in an ideological frenzy, cutting public spending too fast and too deep. And the consequences of these decisions are being felt in every community across the United Kingdom. Not many of us were fooled when he first said this, but had anyone still believed that we were in all this together, that myth was exploded in the Chancellor's budget last month. Tax cuts were handed to the rich to be paid for by tax hikes for pensioners and families. Same old Tories. The sight of the front bench millionaires cheering a tax cut that then their friends would benefit from while charities lost out and the elderly pay the price was grotesque and offensive. It seems the fact of the matter is that some people are in it for more than others, and they are the very ones who are least able to cope with added financial pressure being placed upon them by the choices of this government. That is the country we live in under Tory rule, and everywhere we face real challenges in trying to avoid the destruction of the progress Labour made in tackling inequality and creating opportunity. In Scotland, in the North East, in Liverpool or Manchester, Birmingham or Bristol, the Welsh Valleys, or here on the South Coast, these issues are one and the same, and they're familiar to anyone who remembers the last Tory government. Youth unemployment, health inequalities, educational barriers, and life chances decided by the time children are 3 years of age. Indeed, members in the hall today will face their own uncertainty as this Tory government sets about an upheaval in public services that leaves people worried about jobs and threatens the quality of services. I know that Labour will work with you to protect your members and ensure that these reforms do not cost jobs. In every sector, from the tip of the Highlands to here in the South Coast, we face a real fight to ensure Labour values influence the hard decisions being made in government in a time of scarce resources and falling budgets. And sadly, in Scotland, we face an even greater challenge, as we have, in an SNP government, an obsession with the Constitution, which makes it more difficult to debate what really matters to Scottish families. We all know inequality wasn't created by the establishment of the Union in 1707, and we also know we will not eradicate that inequality by building borders at Gretna again. You only tackle inequality if you understand the causes of inequality. We have to understand why women's lives are tougher. We have to understand why people with disabilities face disadvantage, and why in our black minority ethnic communities not all of our young people achieve what they want. We need to talk about properly what does cause inequality and insist that government addresses that. But in Scotland, funding for colleges, better social care for the elderly and ensuring our streets are safe, all of that agenda is off the limits, as the political discourse is dominated by the one thing that matters to the SNP, and that is separation. As a result, every cut, every savage decision handed down from David Cameron and George Osborne are seized upon as an opportunity to make the case for separation itself. And those of us who campaigned for devolution over many years were firm in the belief that power should lie close to people it seeks to serve, and devolution has been one of Labour's great successes. But we also saw the Scottish Parliament as an instrument in protecting the Scottish people from a Tory government. Never again, we believed, would Scotland be laid bare to the excesses of a Thatcher-like government which wreaked havoc in our communities, and still today, as you will know, many of them bear the scars of those dark days. The Scottish Parliament, in its existence, has meant that when Andrew Lansley set about his reckless NHS reforms, they didn't happen in Scotland. When Vince Cable set about lifting the cap on tuition fees, pricing out many young people from a university education, that didn't happen in Scotland. The Scottish Parliament can ensure that Scotland can make its own choices. Now, that was the theory, but when we most needed that umbrella from the Tory cuts, we have found an SNP government in charge of the Parliament and failing to protect the Scottish people. Indeed, they seem content just to amplify the harsh economic approach by the Tories to further their case for separating off from the rest of the United Kingdom, rather than taking the hard decisions that would bring respite to the most vulnerable people in our communities. And it's my view that there was not one politician more delighted to see the Tories back in power than Alex Salmond, despite him knowing full well the consequences of a Tory government for Scotland and the rest of the United Kingdom. It provided him with an opportunity to set Scotland a false choice. You can have the Tories or you can have independence. Now, traditionally, these are both concepts that the people of Scotland has rejected. And of course, we know that the problem with David Cameron is not that he is English, but that he is a Tory. With local government elections in Scotland less than a fortnight away, Alex Salmond handed on nearly 90% of the cuts in his budget onto our councils, costing jobs and services. In our colleges, the great incubator for our young people at a time of high youth unemployment, he has slashed their budgets and diluted their courses. In our health service, we have lost 2,000 nurses because of SNP-imposed cuts. Now, you may have heard Alex Salmond boast that Scotland could be a beacon for progressives if it was to go independent. That is simply a fantasy. I say, why do we have to wait until after the referendum to get some progressive policies? Scotland doesn't feel so progressive to the women who are out of a work as a direct consequence of SNP policies, or the 100,000 young people unable to get a job. Scotland doesn't feel so progressive if you're having to go without a blanket in a freezing hospital because of SNP cuts. And Scotland doesn't feel progressive if you're housebound and your care visits are squeezed into 15-minute windows because of cuts. That's the reality of life in Scotland under the SNP, and it's only Alex Salmond's brass neck that allows him to argue anything other than that. Conference, we know that it is Labour who are the progressives, and it is our challenge to reassume that mantle in the eyes of the Scottish people. Alex Salmond won the election last year, and he won it handsomely. Labour is now going through a process of renewal, which I am leading as the first ever leader of the Scottish Labour Party. Previously, the leader in Scotland only had control over the parliamentary group in Holyrood. And it's a great privilege and a great responsibility as we try to build our way back from that electoral defeat. The challenge we face is a difficult one, but one we must take on quickly and one we must get right. In 2014, or whenever the SNP gets round to holding the referendum, Scotland faces a big choice: to break away or stay united. And I'm confident that most people agree with me that we're better working in cooperation with our neighbours rather than becoming competitors to each other. The case for separation, at a time when Europe and the world are seeking to come together, to come closer together, when we are increasingly economically interdependent, seems like madness. Indeed, in the current financial climate, had the four countries that make up the United Kingdom been independent from each other, they would no doubt be seeking to find ways of working in closer cooperation now. But we cannot be complacent, and a partnership which has served Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland and England so well for over 300 years is under a very serious threat. The SNP and Alex's rhetoric cannot be underestimated given the overwhelming results he achieved last year, and given the fear people have of what the Tory government at UK level may have planned for them. Now, for me, the debate over the Constitution is a distraction from what really matters, from making people's lives better, but it's a debate that we must have and it's a debate that we must win. All of our nations benefit from the United Kingdom, and it's time Alex Salmond started being honest about the consequences of separation. The Union has allowed us to share some of our best-loved institutions, whether it's the BBC, the NHS, and yes, the Royal Mail. Would our current postal services be sustainable in an independent Scotland? Why would you want to break up a partnership, a sharing of resources that means wherever you are in the United Kingdom, you can send mail at the same price? Scotland has its challenges and its distinct geography and its proud rural and remote communities. As someone whose roots are in Tory and have spent many holidays in the Scottish Islands, I know the particular challenges we face in these communities. Being part of the United Kingdom, being part of something bigger, has made these communities less remote. And as everyone here knows, the communication revolution has been positive for these areas, where we have created jobs, where there have been opportunity for business, and where young people have not had to leave their island to get work, but been able to contribute and work from where they are. The economies of scale have allowed us to absorb these challenges and ensure Scotland receives the quality postal services that our neighbours enjoy. And given the understandable outrage at this increase of a stamp last month, how much would the people of Scotland be prepared to pay in a separate country to post a letter or a parcel? These are the very real consequences of separation that Alex Salmond is blind to and hopes to keep Scotland in the dark about. And I know, and I've noticed that you're having debate later in the week, and I've seen the motions that you're taking part in your own debate about constitutional change on behalf of your members, the implications across the United Kingdom and the implications for the UK-wide labour and trade union movement need to be examined too. And I look forward to hearing from members what they think the big issues are. But we need to get Scotland past the obsession with constitutional arguments and focus on what really does matter: jobs, education of our young people and care for our elderly. While we need to settle the question about separation, we also need to continue to press for government at every level to act on the issues that brought us all into politics: social justice, equality and creating opportunities for those who need them. That is a debate that Alex Salmond simply does not understand. In his fantasy world, only independence will lead us to the land of milk and honey. It is a dishonest argument, and one we can defeat if we stay true to our values and our beliefs and our priorities of tackling injustice. And I look forward to working with my trade union colleagues, including those in the Communication Workers Union, to keep Scotland in the United Kingdom and fighting for our common values of equality, opportunity and shared prosperity. For that is the big prize. Politics, which is founded on what created the labour and trade union movement in the first place: a fairer world, a safer world, a world where all of our children can achieve their potential. That is the very heart of our politics. It's the heart of our politics across the whole of the United Kingdom. And in arguing for Scotland to remain in partnership with the rest of the United Kingdom, we will put that debate at the centre of the politics that we argue. Can I thank you very much for the invitation to be here. I wish you well for the rest of the conference, and I look forward working with you in the coming period, a time of real importance for families right across the United Kingdom. Thank you.